What is up, boys? And today I'm going to be going through my full card predictions for this weekend's fight night, Strickland versus Fluffy Hernandez. And this is a pretty good card top to bottom, and I'm super excited for it. And like always, I have my free Discord where I post my free bets and my premium Discord where you get all of my best bets, and we've been on an absolute tear. And I'm pretty confident that we're going to cash big this weekend. And also in my free group, on the past two UFC events, we have won 100% on free bets. That's 5 out of 5 on the past free events, and that's all for free in my free Discord. So the link is down below and in my bio if you're interested in joining. And without further ado, let's get into the predictions. First fight of the night, Carly Judice versus Juliana Miller. This is the easiest fight on the whole card to predict, in my opinion. I think Carly Judice is going to absolutely smoke Juliana Miller in this matchup. Juliana Miller is a very low-level fighter. We've seen it throughout her UFC career. She really hasn't had that much success. And honestly, she's going against Carly Judice here, who is someone I'm very high on. You look at Carly Judice's last performance against Nicole Cagliari, you can see the high-level striking that she possesses. Her takedown defense also looked good in that matchup, and she was just landing really nice combinations, very high technical fight IQ on the feet. And striking, we really don't see in WMMA, and got a beautiful knee up the middle TKO that she was setting up all fight. And that was a super impressive performance. She's had a couple of close fights, but honestly, her other two decision losses, you could argue she won both those fights, and she's still very young. I think she is a next level striker here at WMMA against Juliana Miller, who is going into, in my opinion, be desperate to get takedowns. And when Carly Judice stuffs those takedowns, I think Carly Judice is going to find a TKO here. So that's my prediction. Super confident in that one as well. Next, we got Yadir Del Valle versus Jordan Levitt. And I'm all over Yadir Del Valle in this matchup. I think he gets it done, and I think he gets it done by submission here in this fight. Now, he's coming off that fight against Isaac Delgarian, where Delgarian got exposed for the betting scandal. And watching that fight back, it does look like Delgarian threw that one on purpose. But Yadir Del Valle wasn't involved in that at all, and other than that, he's looked very good in his fights. His UFC debut, he dominated Conor Matthews, he took him down and got the rear naked choke. And he even has a win over Michael Aswell, who is a pretty solid fighter, who's had some success in the UFC. I think Jordan Levitt here, he's coming down from featherweight, so at his older age, I think this is going to affect his durability, if anything. And in this fight, I think Yadir Del Valle is going to have a massive stand-up advantage. So if they're striking, I think he's going to be way too quick for Jordan Levitt, who's not comfortable on the feet, and hurt him and probably finish him on the feet. But I actually think he's going to get takedowns here. And Jordan Levitt is a very good jiu-jitsu grappler, but his grappling defense, especially the rear naked choke defense, is very questionable. We've seen it twice now, him getting submitted by rear naked choke. And I think that's what Yadir is going to do here. If you see him grapple, he likes to get the back of his opponents. He likes to land some ground and pound shots, and he likes to set up that rear naked choke. I think that is the most likely outcome in this fight. I think Yadir takes him down, lands some ground and pound, and locks in a rear naked choke and gets a submission, most likely in round 1 in this fight. And I'm pretty confident he gets this one done. Next, we got Jean-Paul Bossiani versus Philip Rowe. Now, this is an interesting one here. Jean-Paul is a pretty stocky welterweight in this fight against a very tall, rangy Philip Rowe. And I try to watch as much tape as I can on Jean-Paul. And most of the fights I saw him just absolutely smoking his opponent. And he is very athletic. He has serious power in his hands. He'll throw high kicks in range and land them cleanly. And he also has a pretty solid grappling base as well. But to be honest, I didn't watch enough tape on him to be confident in making a prediction for this fight. Though I do think he is a good fighter. He has a lot of explosive attributes and a lot of power. And for those reasons, I think he does get it done against Philip Rowe here, most likely by some sort of finish. Philip Rowe is pretty solid, but he is hittable. He can get taken down. So there's multiple parts here for Jean-Paul to win, and I'm going to take him here. But I didn't actually watch enough tape on him to be super confident in that prediction. Next up, we got Ramiz Brahimaj versus Punahele Soriano. Now, this is an interesting fight, a very even fight, very good matchmaking. To be honest, I'm looking forward to this one. I'm going to lean towards Ramiz Brahimaj in this matchup ever so slightly here. I think there's two outcomes here that stand out to me above all the rest. I think Number one is Punahele Soriano do what he does best so far on his run at welterweight, and that's get takedowns and rinse and repeat. We saw it in his last fight against Nikolai Verdetenikov. He pretty much just shot repeatedly and got his takedowns consistently and racked up control time there, looking good with his grappling. And in the fight before that, his first fight at welterweight against Miguel Baeza, similar sort of game plan there. He got the takedowns, rinse and repeat, landed a ton of little ground and pound shots, and sustained that for the 15 minutes. I think that is going to be his most likely path to victory here. Ramirez can get taken down, and we have seen in some of his older fights him getting controlled for large portions of the fight. But Ramirez here, he is a very dangerous submission threat. And I was watching back at Punahele Soriano fight. Nikolai Verdetenikov was getting somewhat close on some of those guillotine attempts and some of those front headlock chokes, and Ramirez is a much better submission artist when it comes to these submissions. So I think if Punahele Soriano is shooting a lot here, I can definitely see Ramirez locking up some sort of submission, some sort of guillotine or front headlock, and I think that is fairly likely, and that's ultimately what I'm going to go with here. I think Ramirez is going to find a submission, most likely early, but it is very live that Punahele Soriano can avoid the submissions, get takedowns, and also win a decision. Those are the two most likely scenarios I see for this fight. Either Soriano by decision with the grappling, or Ramirez locks up a submission. Obviously, they can knock each other out, but that's what I'm going to say for this one. Slightly in towards Ramirez by much by submission. Very interesting and very good fight. Now we've got Nora Canole versus Jocelyn Edwards in a rematch, if you didn't know, actually from 2.5 years ago at UFC Paris, which Nora Canole actually got the victory there in a very controversial fight. A lot of people thought Jocelyn Edwards won, but that fight was in Paris and they gave it to Nora. Me personally, I edged it towards Jocelyn Edwards. I don't think it was the craziest robbery, but since that fight, we've seen two very different career trajectories from the both of the fighters. Edwards has been on a 4-fight win streak, and Nora Canole has had very mixed success in the octagon. And in that first fight, Jocelyn Edwards was able to take her down and control her for large periods of that fight. And since then, we've seen Edwards make improvements with her ground game, looking strong with her takedowns and even getting some ground and pound finishes and submissions. And meanwhile, Nora Canole, we haven't seen her improve her takedown defense at all. She had that fight against Haley Cowan where she got controlled for the entirety of the first round against someone who is relatively low level and has not much experience as well. She did get a submission though in round 2, which was good. But then in her last fight, Cara Rosa just took her down with ease and held her there for two rounds straight. Nora did not look good in that fight, and she just hasn't looked very consistent in her past few fights. She's also 36 in this matchup, which is pretty old for women's bantamweight. Meanwhile, Jocelyn Edwards is on that 4-fight win streak. She's coming off 2 round 1 KOs on the feet, where she has shown some good striking and shown some power in her hands. She seems to trust in her hands a lot more, letting them go, trusting in her power. And in the fights before that, she was really utilizing her grappling, using her big frame for the division and holding her opponents down, landing good ground and pound and getting finishes. So I think Jocelyn Edwards here, I think she's going to have the grappling advantage, and I think that is going to be her safest path to victory. Take Nora down, control her, and most likely win by a decision. But even if they're striking, I think Edwards has made improvements to her striking. Meanwhile, Nora stayed kind of the same, or maybe even slightly regressed a bit. So I think Edwards could add striker here as well. So I'm pretty confident Jocelyn Edwards gets it done this time around in the rematch. And that's going to be my pick here, Edwards by decision. Next one, we got Louis Garuli versus Alden Correa. And I'm going to take Alden Correa to get this one done in this matchup by TKO. Now, I don't think Louis Garuli is a bad fighter, but I'm not impressed with him much at all. Technically, he is alright, but for a flyweight, he is very slow. And he's a bit plotty for a flyweight as well. He doesn't move well. He doesn't have good speed in his hands. Technically, his boxing isn't bad. He has solid fundamental wrestling. But the fact how slow he is and his footwork, just for a flyweight, that doesn't impress me at all. He's moving out there like a featherweight or a lightweight, and that just isn't going to cut it against these good level fighters. We've seen it in the UFC. That fight against Ode Osborne, he ended up getting TKO'd. And in his last fight, he was pretty low volume in that fight. It was probably a fight where he could have won if he'd done more, but Jesus Aguilar was able to hit him consistently. Luis doesn't have the best defense, and he was able to rock Luis in key moments in that fight. So 2 losses in the UFC so far, not the best for Lewis. And Alden Correa is coming off that performance against Alessandro Costa, where he looked really, really good. His boxing looked great. His movement on the feet looked super slick. And even his grappling in that matchup looked great. Got some good ground and pound, reversed some positions when he got taken down. And he looked really, really ready for the UFC on his debut. I think a lot of that is because he's Joshua Van's main training partner. And you can tell kind of by the way he strikes, there's some similarities in the game. And he just beat Alessandro Costa, who is someone I'm fairly high on. And I think Costa's sort of like a better version of Garuli, both short, stocky guys, but Costa's a lot more powerful and just a better all-around fighter. So I think this is going to be a step down in competition. I think Correa is going to have a good speed advantage on the feet, be a lot more slick. And even in the wrestling, I give Correa the advantage here. So I'm pretty high on Correa in this fight. I think he's pretty safe. And I see him getting it done by TKO, maybe by ground and pound TKO, or he catches him clean on the feet, most likely in round 2 or 3. So that's what I'm going to say for that fight. Next one, we're moving on to the card, Ode Osbourne versus Alibi Adiris. This was a tough one for me to pick. I'm ultimately going to lean towards Alibi in this fight though, because we've seen it time and time again with Ode Osbourne. He just doesn't beat these grapplers and he gets controlled. Now, I do think he's made some improvements in his takedown defense. We saw that in that Lewis Garuli fight. He did get taken down, but then he started to stuff the takedowns in round 2 and was able to get a pretty impressive TKO. And in his last fight against Steve Erceg, that was a very close fight. Dare I say, he might have won that fight. If you rewatch that round 2, that was close, and that was on short notice. He rocked Erceg bad. Then Erceg, though, he started to shoot the takedowns, and by round 3, he was able to get the takedowns very easily in that fight and control him in that 3rd round pretty dominantly. But Osbourne's takedown defense did hold up for the first 2 rounds. Alibi is someone that I don't have the best read on. I've watched the tape on him. I think he's a very frantic fighter on the feet. Sometimes he looks good, but sometimes he's there overextending with punches, which could be dangerous against Ode Osbourne. Ode Osbourne is one of the more powerful flyweights in the division, and he has some significant finishing potential in round 1, so that could be live for Ode. But he does show some decent grappling, and if you have that against Ode, it's just a massive advantage. I think he's going to push the pace with the wrestling. Maybe he gets a few takedowns stuffed here early, struggles in round 1, but as the fight goes on, he should be able to implement the takedowns, get Ode to the ground. And Ode doesn't really have the best get-up ability. He is susceptible to being controlled, and I think Alibe will get enough control here to most likely win by a decision. But a potential submission or TKO could be live here as well. Still a very close fight. Alibe isn't very proven, and Ode Osbourne has been a veteran, and I think he's better than his record suggests. I think he's a pretty solid staple flyweight in this division. So it's a pretty 50-50 fight, but I will lean towards Alibe just because of the stylistic advantage in this matchup. Now we've got Carlos Leal versus Chidi Njokuanu. I'm going to lean towards Carlos Leal to get this one done here, most likely by TKO in this fight. Now this is going to be a banger matchup with both fighters, very, very dangerous fighters, and who look for the KO here. And Carlos Leal, he moves forward. He's always looking to exchange with big shots in the pocket, but he does abandon his defense, and he gets hit a lot, man. His defense just isn't very good. You rewatch his fights, he's always getting hit clean on the chin, and before that fight against Muslim Salikov, he never got TKO'd, which is pretty shocking to me, considering how bad his defense was, and his chin really held up. But every chin has to go, and when you're fighting like that, you're bound to get KO'd, and Muslim Salikov, as a massive underdog, just caught him clean with the overhand and put him out. And that's going to be dangerous to do against Chidi here in this matchup. Carlos Leal walks forward with his hands down. Those kicks of Chidi are going to be there. And one thing I see that's going to be here is the counter knees of Chidi, which is probably one of his best weapons. He grabs the collar tie and then lands a clean counter knee. If Carlos Leal overextends here, those knees are going to be live for Chidi. He also has some good elbows. So Chidi is more than live for a KO in this matchup on Carlos Leal, who moves forward. But on the flip side, Chidi has shown to get TKO'd quite a bit in the UFC. We've seen when you can get past kicking range against Chidi, he often just grabs for the clinch and he doesn't have the best boxing defense. Carlos Leal will be under pressure. He will be the one walking Chidi Njokuanu down, and he's going to be throwing big bombs. That could get him in trouble, but at the same time, he could land on Chidi. And if he starts landing on Chidi, I think it's going to be downhill for him here. I think Carlos Leal will start letting go with punches. Chidi does not have the best boxing defense, and I think he'll rock him and probably find a TKO here. So TKOs are live on both sides in this fight, But the reason I'm going to lean towards Carlos Leal is because I think he definitely has a better decision equity here. I think Carlos Leal could get on the pressure here and start shooting a lot of takedowns. Chidi does have decent wrestling, so it's not going to be easy for Leal to go and take him down and maul him. But I can see him, as the fight goes on, he gets some takedowns, he gets control in key moments, and could ride out a decision or find some kind of stoppage on the ground. We've seen it before. Chidi got TKO'd on the ground against Mikhail Jacek. He got TKO'd as the fight went on against Gregory Rodriguez by ground and pound, so that is a possibility for Leal. So I'm going to pick Leal. Not very high confidence. It's a great fight, and I'm looking forward to it. Next one, we got Zachary Reese versus Michel Pereira. This is another one of those super close fights where I went back and forth on the prediction, but I'm going to go with Michel Pereira. And I know he has been looking absolutely horrible ever since that fight against Fluffy Hernandez. Before that fight, he was on an absolute tear. 3 round 1 finishes on his move up at middleweight. But since then, that Fluffy fight, he got absolutely dominated, showed horrible cardio, and just got ran through. And since that fight, I think he took a lot of damage. He came in his return performance against Abus Magomedov and looked absolutely horrible in that fight. He pretty much threw nothing, got gassed out very early, and just looked like a shell of his former self. And then in his last fight against Kyle Dorcas, he comes in there and gets knocked out inside the opening minute. So he is not riding a lot of momentum. And I don't think we're going to get the same Michel Pereira in this fight. Though he's fighting Zachary Reese, and Zachary Reese is just someone I'm not high on at all. He has no good wins inside the UFC, and they've put him up against very low-level fighters like Josko Todorovic, Jose Medina, some of the worst bottom-of-the-barrel UFC guys that you expect him to go out there and finish in round 1, and he's gone to decisions with these guys. So I think Zachary Reese, he's a good, powerful athlete, but I don't think he actually has that much finishing potential as I've seen some people talk about. I don't think he's some big knockout artist. Sure, he probably hits hard, but he just doesn't have the skill to set up the shots and actually land them. And his grappling, we've seen him get taken down, and his ground and pound defense has looked horrible. We saw that against Azamat Bakoyev. He just ground and pounded him out. And Cody Brundage was even able to get a TKO on him. So in this fight, I think a lot of things could happen here, but Michel Pereira has proven himself. He is a more experienced fighter. I think he's probably the faster guy on the feet. He probably hits a bit harder as well. And submission-wise, I think he has more of the submission threat as well. Though I will say, if the fight goes on long, I will edge towards Zachary Reese. Michel Pereira's cardio has looked horrible, especially as of late. And I just think Reese will do more if the fight goes on, landing more shots on the feet. And Michel Pereira will just probably do nothing like he's done in his last couple of fights. So pretty low confidence on the prediction, but I will pick Michel Pereira to get this one done. And most likely by a TKO. Next, we got Jacoby Smith versus Josiah Harrell. This is a pretty good fight. Originally, it was meant to be Jacoby Smith versus Sokyo & Co. That would have been an even better fight. But I'm going to take Jacoby Smith here, and I think he gets it done by round 1 KO. Now, Harrell is going to give Jacoby Smith some problems with the grappling. I don't think Harrell's going to be that easy to take down. He's 5'7" at welterweight, a very stocky, strong, muscly guy. His nickname is the Muscle Hamster, and he has good takedown defense. He's a hard man to take down. He has good balance. I do think Smith will be able to get him down, but it's going to take a lot of work, and I don't think he's going to go out there and maul him on the ground like he did to Nico Price. So that is something to take into account in this fight. Though Harrell's striking, I haven't been impressed with, and I think Jacoby Smith will actually have a pretty significant advantage on the feet, especially early when he has that speed in round 1. And I think they're going to be striking in an exchange in round 1, and to be honest, I think Jacoby Smith is going to catch him similar to how he did Preston Parsons. You go and watch Harrell's striking defense. I don't think it's very good. He keeps his hands down. He is hittable, and he doesn't offer too much of a threat on the feet. He's not horrible, but I don't think he has it. He doesn't have that on the feet. He doesn't have that speed or power, and I think Jacoby Smith is going to be better early on here. Now, one thing I want to address, though, is Jacoby Smith's gas tank in that Nico Price fight did look questionable, and I think if he does gas out against Harrell, it could be downhill here because Harrell can survive. And Harrell, even though he's a big, strong, short, muscly guy, he does have pretty solid cardio and he does tend to build into fights late. So if we see Jacoby Smith out here looking gassed in round 2, a live bet on Harrell or something like that could definitely be live. I could see Harrell landing some shots. Maybe he gets on top and even finds a finish or gets a decision victory if Jacoby Smith gasses out. But I'm going to say Jacoby Smith doesn't gas out. I think he finds a finish here on the feet. And if not, I think he will get the takedowns as the fight goes on and control Harrell potentially winning a decision, or he gets a ground and pound stoppage. Next one, Ante Delija versus Sergey Spivak. Give me Ante Delija to get this one done by round 1 knockout in this matchup. Now, Delija is coming off that knockout loss against Waldo Cortez Acosta, but I think this is a completely different matchup here. And one thing I want to mention is Sergey Spivak has been KO'd in round 1 3 times before. We saw it against Walt Harris, we saw it against Tom Aspinall, and we saw him even against Jailton Almeida. He got rocked on the feet in that Almeida fight. And if you watch it back, when he was on the ground, he had plenty of time to move there to survive till the end of the round, but I think he chose not to, and I just think he quit in that fight. And who do we see Almeida rock on the feet? Not a lot of people, right? And Delija, he does come forward in his fights. He comes forward with fast flurries, very aggressive, looking for the knockout. And if he thinks he has you hurt, he will let his hands go and not stop till he finds that KO. We saw it against the Marcin Tybura fight. He made very easy work of Tybura. And in that Waldo Cortez Acosta fight, he was able to land on him. He pressured him back. He let go of that flurry. Obviously, he poked him in the eye, and then the rest was history. But I think Delija here, he's going to come forward. He's going to land some shots, and he's going to let his hands go with a big flurry. I don't think Sergey Spivak is going to react well. I think he's going to show up against the cage, and I think Delija is going to get a TKO stoppage. That's what I see as the most likely path in this fight. Now, Sergey Spivak may be able to have some success with his grappling. He is a pretty solid grappler. He is a good submission threat. But if you just look throughout his career and his record, if you're not a super fat guy like Derek Lewis or Tai Tuivasa, he doesn't submit you. He doesn't even beat you. And I think Delija here isn't the best grappler, but he's solid enough to defend some Sergey Spivak takedowns. And I think he gets a round 1 TKO. Not the most confident pick because Delija is a pretty volatile fighter. And he is getting up there in age, but I do trust him enough to get this one done in this matchup here. Next up, we got Dan Ige versus Melquizel Costa. A great fight. I'm super looking forward to it. I went back and forth on my picks for this one, and I'm going to go with the underdog, Dan Ige, in this matchup. And this is the only underdog I'm picking so far this card, and let me tell you why. Melquizel Costa is on a great run, and I got to give him that. 4 fights, 4 victories in 2025, and he's looked good. And Dan Ige, he's coming off that performance against Pitbull, and he really didn't do much, and that was a pretty lackluster performance. But I see some holes in Costa's game. Now, Costa at kicking range is great. If you let him, if you fight him at kicking range, he'll blast the body kicks, he'll blast the teep kicks, he'll land occasional punches, and he'll circle out, and he will outstrike you at kicking range. But when he gets pressured back against the cage, the guy is hittable, especially as fights go on. Rewatch that Julian Erosa fight. Those rounds 2 and 3 against Julian Erosa, Erosa was landing some big shots on Costa. Costa's defense started to show some weaknesses. He started to drop his hands and he started to get hit clean. And that's Julian Erosa, a very slow fighter and not a very high-level fighter. You look back to his fight against Christian Rodriguez, a very close fight. Round 3, Rodriguez is able to pressure him back against the cage and really start to land some big shots on the feet. Now, Dan Ige, I think if they're at kicking range, he's absolutely going to get picked apart by Costa here. Costa will land the kicks, he'll keep him at range, and he'll circle out. But Dan Ige can close the distance, and he's a very powerful fighter. We've seen it against Sean Woodson. Sean Woodson had that similar game plan of moving around on the back foot, trying to circle away, and ultimately Ige was able to catch him, land a big overhand, and get a TKO. We've seen his danger against guys like Lerone Murphy. He dropped him bad, and he was able to have quite a lot of success in that fight. And before the last little flurry of Lerone Murphy, he was up in that fight and was about to take his undefeated record. I think if Ige can get past the kicking range here, get into boxing range, he can have a lot of success landing boxing shots and even potentially landing some big shots, hurting Costa in this fight. And as far as the grappling goes, Costa's definitely the better BJJ artist. But it's not like Costa has some great wrestling, and Ige has shown throughout his career he can get taken down, but his wrestling defense overall is pretty solid. So I expect Ige's grappling defense here to hold up enough to the point where he's not getting controlled for long periods or submitted or finished by Costa in this fight. I think if this fight goes the distance, I will definitely lean towards Costa though, just off of his output and his activity on the feet. We've seen it with Ige, he loses these close decisions time and time again. Like his last fight against Pitbull, he can find himself falling in love with his power too much, looking for the power shot and not throwing enough volume. We saw that in the Lerone Murphy fight. He's losing these close decisions more often than not. And Costa has shown some pretty good decision equity in his fight against Christian Rodriguez, a close fight. He was able to pull through. So if this one sees the judges' scorecards, I like Costa. But I'm going to say it doesn't. And Dan Ige gets a TKO here in this fight as a pretty decent underdog. I like the value on him here, and that's going to be my pick. A pretty close fight, a 50-50 fight in my opinion, but I'm going with Ige as a dog. Now we got Jeff Neal versus Uros Medic. I'm going to take Jeff Neal to get this one done by round 1 TKO. Uros Medic in his last couple of fights has shown his power. He hits hard, he's a tricky southpaw, and he has serious power in his hands. He's pretty quick, and he's dangerous, especially in round 1. Nearly all of his wins come by that round 1 KO. But also, he's pretty chinny, and he's been dropped multiple times throughout the UFC. We saw it in that fight against Semmelsberger. He got dropped. Even in his last fight, or in his fight before his last fight against Gilbert Urbina, he got dropped in the first few seconds in that fight. And we saw him get put out by a fellow southpaw in Punahele Soriano. And if he's getting dropped by these lower levels of competition, I think Jeff Neal here is definitely going to be able to land on Uros Medic. I think Neal's the more proven fighter, the more experienced fighter. And I trust him here in this matchup to get it done. I think he's going to land on Medic. And I think he's going to find a TKO in this fight. Though Medic is very dangerous. Jeff Neal's coming off his first knockout loss in the UFC, which was pretty brutal against Carlos Prates. So I would not be surprised if Uros Medic finds a shot and knocks him out. Either way, this fight is likely to end in KO. And it's pretty likely to go under 1.5 rounds with either one of them getting a KO. But Jeff Neal, in my opinion, is the more proven fighter, the better boxer. And I think he gets this one done here. I like Jeff Neal in this matchup. Next, we got the main event, Sean Strickland versus Anthony Hernandez. I'm going to pick Anthony Hernandez to win by decision, but I'm worried for him, man, and I think the value is on Sean Strickland. Now, Hernandez has been on a tear. He absolutely dominated Roman Dolidze, and he dominated Michel Pereira. But in the fight before that, that Brandon Allen fight, I rewatched it. Allen had a lot of success in that fight. He was able to stuff some of Fluffy's takedowns, land some good shots on the feet. Though Fluffy did stay tough to the game plan, he did mix in the chain wrestling, and he was able to do enough in that fight. That fight showed some flaws from Fluffy's game. And to be honest, Fluffy hasn't fought anyone like Sean Strickland. I know Sean Strickland's been on a bad run, but the guy does have pretty solid takedown defense. And on the feet, he still is a great striker. He has a great jab. He is good defensively. And yeah, against guys like DDP, he wasn't able to show that, but that's just because, in my opinion, DDP is a good striker in his own right, and he has a lot of power that he had to fear. He had to fear getting backed up by DDP's power, not trying to get hit by him, and I think it's a totally different matchup in this fight. Do I think Fluffy will take down Sean Strickland? I do think he will end up getting some takedowns, but I think early it's going to be a struggle. Strickland's takedown defense will hold up pretty strongly, and I think if he gets him down, Strickland is going to have quite a lot of success getting back up. But what I think is going to happen, I think if Fluffy stays consistent on the front foot, avoids getting hit with any big shots, I think the pressure is going to get to Strickland, and I think Fluffy is going to be able to wear on him and get enough control to get the victory in this fight. I don't think Fluffy finds a finish. Sean Strickland's never been submitted. He is a fairly high-level BJJ fighter, and I don't think he's going to do enough damage on Strickland to get a TKO, in my opinion. Now, if Strickland can keep this one standing, Hernandez could be in a world of trouble. Strickland will have a significant striking advantage, especially if Sean Strickland moves forward. That's going to be key for him here. Whoever moves forward in this matchup is going to dictate a lot of how the fight goes. If Strickland can move forward, start stuffing some of Fluffy's takedown, lands his teeps, lands his jabs, he could be on his way to a TKO victory or even a decision victory. We've seen Fluffy hurt to the body. We saw it in that Brendan Allen fight. He got hit. And he got hit in the eye, and he didn't show the best body language. So I think Sean Strickland is live as an underdog here. I do think he can get it done, but I do have to mention this. Momentum is all the way on the side of Fluffy Hernandez. Fluffy's on a massive win streak. He seems hungrier than ever, and he's really building as a fighter in this division. Meanwhile, on the flip side, Sean Strickland, ever since that Israel Adesanya performance, his performances have been getting worse, and he's got progressively more low output and tentative in his fights. That DDP1 fight wasn't the worst showing, a close fight. He landed some jabs, but even in that fight, he was pretty low volume. In the Paulo Costa fight, even worse. He was very low volume, pretty tentative, and scraped by Costa but did not look very good. And in that DDP rematch, it got even worse. His volume wasn't there and he got completely shut down by DDP. And also, he's coming off a year layoff in this into this matchup. That's not normal for Sean Strickland. Strickland is usually a pretty active guy, and I think Sean Strickland isn't as motivated as he once was. He's had a lot of success in his career. He's not fighting for his paycheck like he used to be, and he's been the champion. I don't think he has the same hunger that he once was. I know he states that he loves to fight, but I don't think he's as hungry as a Fluffy Hernandez, who's on a long win streak and has shown time and time again to improve off of his performances. So for those reasons, I'm going to have to pick Fluffy in this matchup. But I don't love the price tag, and I do think there is some value in Sean Strickland, and I'm not completely counting him out. Now, remember, if you want all of my bets, the free Discord link is in the bio, as well as my premium bets. That's where you get all of my bets, where we've been absolutely crushing it this year, and in the past 2 UFC events, we are up over 6 units, and we're going to do the same this weekend. So if you want to make some money, you know what to do. Click the links, and I'll see you inside. Let's go.